However, we are recommending that we convert dental to self-insurance as well this year. We feel like we can save through an Anthem plan about $12,600 by converting dental to self-insurance as well. So to wrap up, what staff's recommendations would be: renew our self-funded plan with Anthem for another year, keep the same products, keep the same contribution percentages for the county and the employee and all the tiers, invest the projected savings, as I indicated, back into the self-insurance pool, and convert our dental coverage to self-insured as well through Anthem as the third-party administrator, and invest that money as well into the pool. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Grasso can amplify on that, or we'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, the one question before we get to the other questions is it at all possible that we can pay them for 3 more months to put them on our fiscal year? Not this year? But that's what you told me last year.
So when you have a self-funded account, we can actually move to a fiscal year. There's a couple things that I am concerned about on a fiscal year, and that is you won't have your renewal time. Most of the groups that are in the municipality run that July to June fiscal year, or October to September 30th, one of the two. Many of them have that fiscal year renewal at that time. So one of the things that we find that's difficult to deal with is the fact that your renewal is actually not out at the time you're trying to do a budget. So every single one of those groups that renew in July, they don't have their budget numbers, and they guess every single year. So you are actually in a unique position where you actually have the numbers so that when you're creating budgets, you know what your cost is going forward without having to wait on a renewal. So those folks don't get their renewals until probably about March, which is a little bit late for your budget process. So that was one of the reasons that we decided not to do it. Having said that, if it's really something that's decided that you know, as a group you want that done, we have to give them 6 months notice prior to doing it.
And my only, I defer to your expertise. My only question is, now we're going to approve this, and we're going to budget for this, and then next year, same time, insurance could go up 20–30%. So then we'll have to scramble at the end of our fiscal year to find whatever the increase is. It's not hard for us to scramble to find a surplus. Right. You know, that's really easy. We'll just take that, write it in, but finding it at the end of the year when it goes up. Mrs. Hatcher's coming to tell me how much wrong I am, but...
Well, she's got a great formula in which to do that.
Okay.
I actually, when we get our renewal, I actually budget in a small increase for 4 months of the fiscal year as a hedge against a major increase. So
you're guessing?
I guess for 4 months.
Like she said the other people guess. You're guessing.
I guess for 4 months, not an entire year. But I do budget a little bit of an increase towards it. When we work on the premiums, I've calculated in those 4 months of a little bit of an increase based on what our current increase might be. And I just add a little bit and then I spread it out over the year. So we actually don't see a major hit unless we hit claims like 40–50%, which is why we want to keep the money in the self-insurance pool.
Okay, I mean, I don't think there's any problem with keeping it in the pool. I remember asking last year if we could move it to a fiscal year. I understand yours. If none of the board members are concerned about moving it to fiscal year, I won't mention it again until next year. So, doesn't sound like anybody's that excited. We're good? Okay, Mr. Parton, sounds good. Is there you need action for us to make a motion to renew it?
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Black. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion carries to accept the staff recommendation for renewing health insurance. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, did we discuss the dental plan also?
We were taking it as one motion. That was his recommendation to move to the dental plan.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next order of business is agenda item 3, appointments. Planning Commission for Mattapanna. Mr. Finch, Planning Commission meets tomorrow, right? Yes, sir. And may I make an appointment for like Thursday? I have someone to appoint. Mr. Bush has been serving since his term expired. So I have an appointment, but appointing that person right now means that person should be at the meeting tomorrow.
Correct.
Can
Make
I-
it effective Thursday.
Can I make it effective Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work with you, Mr. Fincham? And then Mr. Bush will, I understand there's some issues coming up tomorrow that are fairly interesting for you.
I'm not sure Dr. Bush is planning on attending tomorrow. I believe he felt that the end of December was an appropriate time for, if,
Because we've extended him for a couple of months after that?
yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
But if I can still do that, then I could talk to Dr. Bush and he could come, if that's okay? So I can make an appointment effective
Thursday.
Thursday? Okay. I would like, with the board's permission, I would like to appoint Mr. Purcell Minor, who served on the BZA now, to be on the Planning Commission. Do I need to give you his number? You have it because he's on the BZA. Mike will have it already too. Could I get that well, I'm making the motion, we get to make motions. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So the motion's made by me, seconded by Mr. Seeley, to appoint Purcell Minor to the Planning Commission effective the 16th. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries. The Bay Consortium Workforce Investment Board, that's the one where we're supposed to look for a business person? You didn't get one? Deputy?
No, and I did ask somebody, and I never took them to talk to them.
Okay. Anybody else? We're gonna try to fill this appointment in 2 weeks. So you, Mr. Taylor, you have anybody in mind?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. We'll ask if the two of you have somebody that might be in mind. Who served last? Whoever served can't serve again. I think that's what it was. Or they moved. Yeah, it's got to be a business person. I mean, any business person in the county. So we can, maybe could you ask the chamber? Maybe that's a good idea. We'll ask the chamber, and you could explain the duties while you look at the chamber. They have a meeting in the morning, the chamber?
Yes.
Okay.
It's 8 o'clock at the visitor center tomorrow.
All right. Well, between that, you could ask the chamber and then kind of bring us something back on the 28th. Okay, BZA Bowling Green, Mr. Seeley.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Jim Day. He's agreed to serve again.
Jim Day. Okay. Is there a second? Second was Mr. Akers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That motion carries. No other appointments. We'll do Workforce Investment Board on the 28th. Consent agenda. Anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda as is? Agenda items D and E are just renewals from special exceptions. So they come back to the board on a regular basis. But anybody like to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Agenda item F, Mr. Chairman.
F?
F.
Mr. Black? You had F? Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, if a motion is in order,
Yes.
I would move we approve the consent agenda A, B, C, D, E, and G.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Seeley and Underwood. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, nay. That motion carries. Agenda item F, Mr. Seeley, your question.
Mr. Chairman, in looking at this, I guess I just had some questions about what this effect would have on the folks. And this looked like it gave the company that we've hired the ability to offer the products that they offered and locked everybody else out. And I guess I was just curious what this really entailed.
The purpose of it was to develop some structure to the carriers that we allow to come in to offer these optional benefits. I mean, what we've found in the past is we're at times inundated with calls from vendors wanting to come in and meet with employees and offer their products. So what we tried to do was bring some structure to that process. So there was an RFP that went out, and we evaluated the responses, and the way it would work, as I understand it, and Nancy can explain this more, but in order to offer those new products, we would be able to allow the current products, the vendors, the AFLACs and so forth, to continue with their existing employees that they already have signed up for the types of plans that they already have, but not offer new products to existing customers or any products at all to other employees that they hadn't previously signed up. That's the way it would work. And again, it's all designed to bring some structure to the process and not have just a free-for-all with vendors wanting to come in and sign employees up.
I guess I'm curious of what types of products, because we didn't, I mean, AFLAC I know is something that a number of folks in a lot of counties use for long-term, short-term. I guess I'm curious where we're going and what kind of company and.
Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that we needed to do when we look to add some structure to this. One of the firm beliefs that I have is that as an organization, Caroline County, anything that we endorse, we have to make sure as a group that we really understand that we're giving the best possible products that could be available at the best available prices. So what we did was we put it on RFP and gave an opportunity for the current incumbent carriers to also respond. And so the responses that we got from those carriers, we stacked them up from a product and portfolio standpoint against the premiums that they're charging, and feeling good about the fact that we can offer better products at better prices to the people within the school. I think, in the system. I think part of the problem, these companies, there's nothing wrong with them, they're great companies, but because of some of the name recognition that they have, the pricing model is a little bit higher than others. So some of the companies that we're using are Allstate, Mutual of Omaha. I mean, there's a good A+ rated companies that work in the same vertical. So it just made sense for us to take on the responsibility on behalf of the employees to make sure that we were offering products that were the best products at the best pricing. And again, we did give those companies who are incumbent the opportunity to respond to that RFP and stack them up against in that measurement process. The reason that we're allowing them to continue to sell those products to keep those products within the group is because unlike your health insurance, if we went out to bid with your health insurance and decided that United Healthcare was a better deal, we would come in and we would tell everybody, you no longer have, Anthem, you'd now have United Healthcare. But because these people are paying for this themselves, and some of these people bought these policies years ago, we've given them the ability to keep what they've already purchased, but on a go-forward basis, they're actually going to be able to look at products that are more competitive in the marketplace.
Okay, I guess my concern, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't wholesale just replace, because I guess what I'm hearing you say, it was like a Chinese menu. You can pick A, B, C, and D and bid that, and you stack that up against X, Y, and Z to see who is the best, and then you pick the best of all those that bid under this digital group. Is that?
Correct. So we're offering different products with different carriers because they won the bid on a particular product. So for example, our life and disability is going to go to Mutual of Omaha, but our critical illness and cancer plans are going to go to Allstate. But those people who already have those products with Colonial or AFLAC have the ability to keep them.
Okay.
I can't resist this. I really can't.
Sure.
So what you're saying is, if you have an insurance plan you like, you can keep it, right?
Yes. Yes, we've truly set it up that way. Yes.
I could do that, you couldn't, so, okay. But that's definitely the case, and there's no penalty because the pool is smaller. Because if I got 100 people with AFLAC and they love it, now my pool is smaller for the next person.
No, with the rates aren't structured that way. They're structured on an individual basis, so that really shouldn't have an impact.
That's not an effect.
No.
Okay.
From an administrative standpoint, I think that we will see some people come off the AFLAC plan and go to the other plans because of the cost structures associated.
Okay. There was a question, Mr. Black?
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about what Mr. Parton, what have we done in the past? I think in, like, for example, in Spotsylvania County Schools, a lot of times we have employee benefit fairs where the employees can go to certain fairs and we can look at, different companies are there. Have we done that in Caroline in the past?
We did it many years ago.
And what would be, just out of curiosity, playing devil's advocate, what would be the problem with, because that would give to me the employee the option themselves, and as far as what they wanted themselves.
We could do that. Frankly, it's a staffing issue. It's a coordination issue. These things come in all the time, and we're constantly referring them to Nancy. And we just felt it was better to have a more structured approach, frankly. Sure.
The one thing that I do want to add to that is one of the issues that we reconciled early within this organization is that because there were multiple carriers selling the same products, people were buying the same product from different people. So you had folks that had 2 and 3 disability products, and really only one of them can pay. You don't want somebody to be out disabled and getting triple their salary. So they set them up so that they coordinate with each other, and only one of them will pay, yet they're paying premium on 3 different plans because they had all different salespeople coming in and telling them that they needed that. So what we decided is we had some fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we did the due diligence on their behalf and gave them choices within a parameter. The other thing is there are hundreds of people who try to sell products. So if you're going to allow multiple people, how do you pick and choose who you're going to let in? And then it started to feel like there wasn't a structure around who we were allowing to come and talk. The one who called the most or the squeaky wheel ended up kind of coming in and getting an opportunity to talk to all the employees, where we said, let us do an RFP, let us make that selection on their behalf. Now, if we wanted to do that periodically, we could certainly do that so that we could keep abreast and make sure they're constantly the most competitive.
I guess I'm just concerned as far as just because Company A is best for a single person or whatever the case may be, Company B may be better for someone, a married couple or whatever the case. It's when you have an employee fair, you give the freedom of choice to the consumer.
Yeah, and I think
I just have a hard time here believing that one company is best for across the board.
Well, and it's not one company for all different products. It's per.
I understand that.
So I think when we do the analysis, I think we take a lot of those considerations. The other thing is nothing is prohibiting somebody from going into the free market and buying what they need if they felt like what was being offered by the system wasn't what they needed. But when
so you're saying we're not going to allow Aflac to come in because they're not part of this group.
Yeah, right.
But if I, as an employee, want to go out and buy Aflac because I like the duck or the commercials, I can do that.
Yeah, you're free to do that. The other issue is what we're really talking about here is we're supporting these purchases through payroll deduction. So what's happening is as these people as your employees are meeting with these representatives from these variety of different companies and they sign on for these products, Fran has to set up a payroll deduction for every single company.
Okay, and that brings up something, Mr. Thomas just brought up something that's interesting to me. So let's say, for example, that I am a new employee and whatever company that Caroline County is offering for, product X. If I want Aflac, which is not one of the companies that you guys have picked, this Ward Services, can I still get payroll deduction?
No. No. You can purchase it from Aflac, but it cannot be payroll deducted. Because you can't have 25 different payroll deductions. So for every company that wants to come in, it's really difficult to do. The same thing, it's the same premise. Why are you not offering 15 different health insurance companies? It's kind of the same premise. We do the due diligence. We pick a company for them. Some people may not prefer Anthem. They may want United Healthcare or Coventry, but that's not what you offer because you've done the due diligence on their behalf and you're offering that product. It's the same kind of a principle. It's not an effort to really lock anybody out or pigeonhole anybody into anything. It's just to keep it organized and to make sure that we're allowing these people to buy products that make sense for them as opposed to some of the folks having multiple products with multiple different companies that is really not in their best interest. And it's a complicated purchase, so sometimes it gets a little out of hand.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
I wonder if through staff, have we had employee complaints? The fact that we have gone with a structured system and we're saying, okay, these are the companies that we're going to allow to be payroll deduction. If you want to buy some other insurance other than what we have indicated here.
Today, the only one that you're allowing in is Aflac and Colonial. So if Allstate was better for somebody, you're not allowing them. So you're really doing the same thing now. It's just you're changing.
Yeah, I
the
I
think-
say there's not a problem, there's not a problem. I mean, if employees have a problem with it, they let you know about every other problem that, you know, they have.
Right.
And so I think if that was an
You haven't
issue
heard
with
that
this-
one yet.
This particular.
We haven't done it.
Absolutely, you'd hear about it.
Okay, and I think I'm not sure if I'm ready to go for it, but I'm hearing a couple of different things, and one, I think I really don't care if you have 25 payroll deductions. And I don't think anybody should care. That should be a function of our computer system. And what you're really telling me behind the scenes is our computer system can't really do 25 deductions, which is not your problem.
Right.
That's my problem. Yeah, okay,
She's shaking yes. She's shaking her head yes or no.
Okay, so that's, I mean, you don't have to explain that. You don't have to explain that. That's okay. The other thing is you said if I've got 3 disabilities that only one is going to pay. If I got 3 car insurances and I have an accident, I'm going to get 3 checks from the car insurance people because I'm paying them premiums. I don't know why the insurance industry is like that.
Disability doesn't work that way. It just,
Disability or anything related to health
there are
insurance.
some policies that will pay multiple times. But I think the folks that we're talking to don't realize that they purchase the same type
Right.
of insurance. So it's not really somebody saying, I wanted 3 car insurance policies because if I get in an accident, I get paid 3 times. When we meet with these folks, they say, I didn't realize that's what I bought.
Yeah.
And I've been paying for it all this time. So really it was an effort to help the folks identify what products. And by the way, there's a whole coaching process that goes through this. And that's why in this packet, there's a company that we've actually worked with that sits one-on-one with each person and says, you know, is Aflac the right group for you? Is Allstate the right group for you? Who and what do you need, and what are your family's needs, and can you afford this? So there's a one-on-one coaching process that goes through with this as well.
And if we do this, we can opt out at the end of the year or next year?
We can revisit it whenever you want. So if you did find that there were some folks coming up and saying, this is not what we want,
Okay.
then we can change it.
So leave it as it is.
Okay.
But this is not atypical. So, you know, I work in this vertical. I do a lot of business. This is not an atypical process. Most county governments and localities they'll make this selection, they'll put out an RFP, and they'll make these offerings. It's pretty common practice.
All right, well, thank you for the information. Let us figure out what we want to do. Do we get a better price? Do they get a better price?
Yes.
Because it's going under one particular vendor that's got all these other things that they're basically the middleman for, and they can get better prices or something
The
that,
prices are better regardless of how many people enroll.
okay.
So if one person enrolls or 100 people enroll, the price is better than what's being offered today.
Okay. What does the board want to do?
Volume pricing.
So we have always the do nothing as an option, or we can go with this, or we can wait and do something else. So what do we want to do?
I say we go with this because we know that within a year, we can opt out, or at any point we can opt out, at least give it a chance. As Mr. Underwood has said, that's what we pay her, and the company that you work for. We pay you to help us with these decisions. I don't know that much about insurance, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure the other 5 members are versed enough on the issue to know whether it's good or bad. So we pay you to do that.
And we'll find out from the employees if we've made a mistake pretty
Absolutely
quickly.
will. Absolutely. Hadn't
Sure
failed
we
yet.
will. Okay.
Mr.
All
Chairman,
right.
do you need a motion?
Anybody else want to go with what we have? Or take this recommendation? It sounds like that's what the consensus is. Is there a motion to that effect, that we move forward with the recommendation from Digital Benefits to Select Award Services?
So move.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Black was the only nay vote. The motion carries. That's the end of the consent agenda. We will take about a 15-minute break. It's about 7:40. We will be back for public comment section, or public comments, and continue with the agenda. So we'll stand adjourned. Thank you. We're going to go to public comments. Then we have scheduled a public hearing, but Mr. Cody has asked me, since Ms. Grasso's here, if we could move her up. from agenda item 9. So after public comments, we'll do agenda item 9, and then we'll come back to the public hearings that we have, which is just the one public hearing. So at this point in time, we're going to open public comment up. At this point in time, anyone who would like to speak to the Board of Supervisors regarding any matter that's not a public hearing may do so. You will have 3 minutes to exercise your opinion. So at this point in time, I will ask or declare the public comment section to be open. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public comment? Is there anyone who would like to speak during public comment? And when you come, please state your name and your voting district, please.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm just fine. Karen Lambert,
Good.
Reading Church. I'm here to bring attention to the board that there is an event to take place at the Meadow Event Park that I believe does not fall into the by rights or permitted uses of the property. The Evolution Performance Driving School has a 2-day event booked for February 15th and 16th. Their own site describes this as a hands-on, foot-to-the-floor autocross driving school. As before, I am asking you to enforce the zoning and proffers, as well as your promises to the neighbors of the area that no motorized racing would take place. Mr. Fincham is now aware and has already stated that he will get back to me, but I just want the board to be aware. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lambert. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Anyone else? We will declare public comment closed. Thank you. Mr. Fincham, you're following up from Ms. Lambert on the Meadow Event Farm? Okay. I didn't have a chance to. They have on their website what their events are, so I didn't have a chance to look at it, but you can check that. So Mr. Fincham's going to take care of that and let you know, and you'll let us know. All righty. Ms. Grasso, you are here for agenda item number 9. Mr. Parton is going to get something else, so you're on your own now.
All right. I think I can handle it. Thank you. Thank you very much for moving me up in the agenda. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So the action that we're looking to take today is related to the Virginia Local Disability Program. So I think I came to the board a few months ago when we talked a little bit about the unfunded mandate that came out of the General Assembly that mandated us to put disability products, both short-term and long-term disability, on the hybrid employees. So with that kind of bubbling to the top, has this question's been raised about giving equity to the 1 and 2s, which are your current legacy employees, and offering them a policy. So we looked at the policy, we ran some quotes to see if it would make sense to offer the 1s and 2s, the current population that work in the county, the same similar type of benefits on disability, and the premium was about $52,000 a year. So at this time, until we can figure out what other localities are doing, whether this will be a common practice, whether we could get it from a budgetary perspective in, we're going to defer decision on that and decide not to do that now and maybe readdress it at a future date. In addition to that, we're also looking at the same time, we'll be looking at some potential changes or some discussion points surrounding the leave policies for hybrids. So that becomes part of that package, because your hybrid employees now have short-term and long-term disability, so when they're out for long illnesses, they really don't need as much sick time as your current population. So there's this effort, this movement that I'm working with very many of the counties and localities to determine whether or not we should change sick leave policies. So all that we're kind of looking at as a future effort, and at this point the recommendation has been to not offer that program to the current employees.
Okay. Board members have questions, Ms. Grasso? Basically, in this case, we're not going to do anything, which is always an option. So, any questions?
I guess I just want to make sure
Yes,
I
sir.
understand. So they presently do not have that coverage,
That is correct.
and so we're just recommending that they still not have it. Basically, is what you said.
That's correct.
There's the hybrid retirement plan, too. So it's-
Yes, the folks in the hybrid retirement plan, it's mandated by the state to offer that coverage to them. But your current employee base does not have that coverage.
Any other questions? Recommend or motion to follow the recommendation of staff, which would be to not offer it at this time?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Black. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Public hearings, Mr. Fincham. We have special exception 05-2013, exterior signage for the YMCA.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your public hearing tonight is SPEX 05-2013. Request is for 3 signs, 2 wall signs, and 1 monument-style sign for the YMCA. Under county regulations in the Planned Unit Development District, unless a sign package is developed and approved by the board with the original zoning application, any signs in the Planned Development District require a special exception permit from the board. This property is part of the original Madison Town Center zoning, which was approved by the board a number of years ago, and there was no sign package or sign regulations approved at that time, necessitating the granting of a special exception permit by the board. The YMCA is requesting 3 signs, 1 monument-style sign, and 2 wall signs. All of the signs meet the ordinance requirements for the Planned Development District and are consistent with the regulations. In fact, the signage is actually smaller than what is otherwise allowed by the Planned Development regulations. The Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and forwarded a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors for the sign package requested by the YMCA. And with that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Board members at this time have any questions? Mr. Taylor?
Not at this time.
Mr. Black? No. Mr. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir.
None at this time.
No questions now, Mr. Fincham. Thank you very much, and I believe representative of the applicant is here. So we will declare special exception, the public hearing for special exception 05-2013 to be open. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak? I see Mr. Marine making his way.
More or less, this is simply us.
Oh, Keith, just for the record, would you just state your name? And
Keith
your voting
Marine,
district?
Executive Director of the YMCA. Thank you. This is just us requesting to be able to put signage on our building out front, to be attractive, professional, to make the area look presentable, and so that's why I'm here. We stayed within the guidelines. It stays within the branding rules of the YMCA. There's sign guides that come down to us from the National YMCA, and I wanted to make sure they met your regulations and be attractive.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members at this time have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. There is one. I don't know if every board member has a letter on there. There is a letter from Jeffrey Staub, who apparently can't be here, and He urges the request for special exception permit to allow 3 signs not be given. It seems to me that 1 sign will be enough to identify the building and refer passersby to the YMCA site. That was his comment. We have the rest of his comments that we'll enter into the record. So, at this time, any questions for Mr. Fincham or the applicant? Or a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve this request, and I think it's important that maybe we send correspondence to Mr. Staub to let him know that, first of all, this facility is not in Ladysmith Village, first of all, and second of all, it is not in the residential area of the development, it is in the commercial area of the development, and I think that was his reasoning for asking that this application be denied, because he, number one, I guess, thought it was in the Ladysmith Village development, and number two was the fact he's saying it's in a residential area, which, again, it's part of the Madison Town Center, which is a commercial development.
Okay. That was your motion.
It was my motion.
And follow up with some comments from Mr. Staub. Is there a second to your motion?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Akers, seconded by Mr. Underwood and Mr. Taylor simultaneously. Discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will move to agenda item number 6. Mr. Fincham. I guess after the presentation for stormwater from Mr. Landavaco, is there any more you would like to add?
Mr. Chairman, you have tonight before you the final draft of the proposed stormwater management ordinance that, unless directed otherwise by the board, we intend to submit to DEQ tomorrow in accordance with the deadlines that have been adopted. The draft ordinance has been reviewed by the county attorney, and I think we have incorporated all of her comments and hopefully addressed all of the issues related to the regulations that have been adopted by DEQ. Just a reminder, this is not subject to public hearing as of this time. DEQ wants or reserves the right to comment before we actually go to public hearing and adopt an ordinance. I believe Mr. Akers asked a question at the last meeting what the potential penalties were for noncompliance. We have researched that question, and in addition to suing for enforcement, there is a financial penalty of $32,500 per day if a locality is found not to be in compliance with the regulations.
Okay, we're going to send this draft right away. I don't think there's a lot more discussion to take. Okay. I think we've gotten our incentive. Is there anything else the board would like to discuss before we pass the draft to DEQ and get their comments? No other questions, so we're going to ask Mr. Fincham to forward it to DEQ, get their comments. And after their comments, because this doesn't take effect until we actually do a public hearing.
Takes effect July 1st. Right. We have to adopt and resubmit back to DEQ in April.
Right. So we have in the board packet, there's a schedule. So we have to do this by January 15th, which is tomorrow. And then DEQ comments. April 1st is supposed to be a final ordinance due to DEQ for approval, and then July 1st it starts up. All of which may be affected by the General Assembly session over the next 60 days.
Yes, sir.
But in order for us to not get a $32,000 fine, you're going to fax, email, walk it down to Richmond, whatever you have to do to get it in tomorrow, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do we have, Mr. Chairman, do we have any idea as to, based on what we are agreeing to do, what kind of cost we would be looking at, total cost to to be in compliance?
There's a fee schedule that was actually adopted. We will bring a fee schedule to the board, and we proposed at this point in time to simply adopt a fee schedule that is outlined in the state regulations. There's also some discussion that fee schedule will change as well. I will tell you, we are not proposing any additional staffing to implement the regulations. We really need to get in and through the ordinance, through any additional regulations that come down from DEQ, determine what the real impact is going to be. We don't have yet the information from DEQ as to what the local program requirements are going to be in terms of inspections and things like that. Most of this is just geared to getting the regulations in place so that the applicants actually have a permit process that they have to follow.
And didn't you give us a schedule of fees before?
I believe there was a draft fee schedule. Depending on the type of permit, it can range anywhere from, I believe it's $190 up to $9,500, I believe, somewhere in there, which relates to the size of the project.
Okay. And of course, 28% of whatever's collecting goes to Richmond.
Yes, sir.
All right. We carried the motion? Yeah, you're just going to get this tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No action is really required by the board at this time.
Because you're going to take the action and make sure it gets there. Okay, thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 7, which is our continued first reading on the property manager's residence. I think we've got 3 continued readings, and there was some discussion before. Mr. Fincham, if I may, I believe was suggesting that the board members who had questions about it talk to him and compile, so he can compile those responses and answers and then bring it back to us again. Is that still what you'd like to do?
Yes, sir. I mean, based upon discussions with the board, we have proposed some additional modifications. But what I've heard from the board is we really don't have consensus in terms of the additional regulation or modifications that staff has suggested. So what I'd like to try to do is talk to board members individually to see if we can get that consensus with a final set of regulations that we bring to the board.
Okay, and then you'll bring those back for our continued first reading and then move it on to public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sounds good. Agenda item number 7, we'll ask Mr. Fincham to contact individual board members to follow up. Agenda item number 8 is our, I guess it's continued discussion. Mr. Parton has this, or you have that? You have this? Okay. Agenda item 8 is our discussion of the proposed naming of the courthouses for the late Judge Farm and the late Judge Benzer. Mr. Parton, you're there.
Mr. Chairman, at your suggestion, we had talked about this, I believe, at the November 26th meeting, and we were asked to go back and think about it a little bit more and try to come up with some options. And in discussing that, what we identified basically were 2 options. One would be you could name the actual courthouse, and it would be appropriate to name the General District Courthouse building after Judge Benzer and the Circuit Court building after Judge Farmer. You could either put lettering.
Can you phrase those into new courthouse, old courthouse?
The courthouse annex, the new courthouse for Judge Benzer.
Okay.
Since he served on the General District Court, and the Circuit Courthouse, or the old courthouse after Judge Farmer. And what we had identified was basically 2 options: name the actual building itself. There's some lettering on the new courthouse above the archways that designated as such. You could potentially replace those with naming the building after Judge Benzer. The problem with the circuit court is there doesn't appear to be space above the